The town of Hinton respectfully acknowledges that it is located on the First Peoples traditional lands. We recognize this traditional territory to show respect and understanding to those who walk this land since time immemorial. Today, we uphold our ongoing responsibility to work together in the spirit of the intent of the treaties with all the First Peoples and nations that call this place home. The town expresses gratitude for the opportunity to build a better community on these sacred lands for generations to come. With that, we will call this regular council meeting for August 6th, 2024 to order. First item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Council, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda this evening? Administration, any additions or deletions to the agenda this evening?
Nothing from administration.
Thank you, Acting CAO. Council, looking for a motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor Taylor.
I move that we adopt the agenda as printed.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Council, the motion on the floor is the council adopt the agenda as presented. Any discussion? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question. Councillors, please vote now. And that motion is carried unanimously. Next item on the agenda is council minutes for adoption. Councillors? Councillor Taylor.
I move we adopt the regular council minutes, meeting minutes of July 16th, 2024, and the committee of the whole meeting minutes of July 23rd, 2024.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillors, the motion on the floor is that council adopt the minutes from the regular council meeting of July 16th, 2024, and the committee of the whole meeting July 23rd, 2024. Any discussion? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question. Councillors, please vote now. And that motion is carried unanimously. We'll take us to section 4 of the agenda this evening, Citizens Minute with Council. Minute with Council provides an opportunity where residents can address council regarding issues, events, celebrations, or concerns. To ensure a constructive and welcoming environment, please adhere to the following guidelines. Keep your remarks concise, limited to 1 minute. Address the chair of the meeting when speaking to council. Avoid asking questions as this is not a Q&A session, and maintain a respectful tone and language. First up for Minute with Council this evening, we have Lieutenant Colonel Barr and Chief Mazarol from the Canadian Armed Forces.
Mr. Chair, I'll make this quick because I know I've worked in the Thornhill County before as a member there, and I know these sessions are extremely important. And you have business to do, and I've ambushed you today. First thing we want to do is we want to pass on some money that we have collected from the soldiers, and we want to pass it to your fire chief as the mayor and council here as witnesses, because money to another person of money, it's best done with witnesses to make sure it ends up in the right location. And the right location we want it to go to is the Fallen Firefighters Fund or something of that equivalent to that young firefighter that passed away recently. And there, as you may know or not know, there is a military connection. He was a soldier before he was a firefighter, as well as his father was a long-serving soldier in the PVCLI. So we'd like to pass this $1,720.95 to your fire chief.
So, Your Worship, I'm sure the family will be very appreciative of this collection that was done on a volunteer basis from our Canadian Forces members. I've already spoken to our Firefighters Association, the Flame Chasers, and they are going to increase this amount to a nice round number, yet to be determined at their meeting.
Thank you, Chief. I'm sure you're going to get it to the right people.
Last point of business, and I'll make this quick. We have got wind that we may be relocated to work with Alberta wildfire elsewhere in the province, yet to be announced. It's being worked at in the PEC right now. And if that's the case, some of us may be out of here pretty quick, including myself, as you all know, as part of the Recce Party, Advanced Party, staging forward. So we have had a tremendous support from the town of Hinton and its citizens as we moved about doing our business, and from your staff that have helped out through the facilities that we have used. Not only us, but two PPCLI before us, the soldiers from Shiloh, Manitoba. And with that, we'd just like to present you to hang, whether it's in this building or an appropriate building, just a memento from us that has the units from Western Canada, the reservists, just so you know this time and the support that Hinton has done forward to Jasper, that we lived amongst you as we were doing that. So I'd just like to pass this to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, Atlantis, all soldiers of 38, 39, 41 Brigade. Thank you very much. Take shape.
And with that, we'll let you get back to business. Thank you very much.
And on behalf of the town of Hinton, thank you for your service in our great community, Colonel and Chief, and please pass our thanks on to the troops. Next up for Minute with Council, we have Louis Corbeil speaking on sprinklers. Perhaps.
Good Mayor, good afternoon, councillors. Thank you for allowing me this minute. Unfortunately, I'm framing this with what's going on with our neighbors to the east, roughly 14 months ago, and presently our neighbors to the west. And it's come to light that
Excuse me, sir. You don't have to follow the Army's lead. If you'd like to pull up a chair and have a seat, you're welcome to it.
You're okay with okay with me? Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. I'll stand. That's all right. So basically, that's what I'm framing this conversation with. I present you a residential wildfire sprinkler. There are many models. This is just one model that we had on our house. I just took it off today. That's why it's still wet, and I was wet not too long ago. Recommended by seasoned wildland forest firefighters, including our sons who have many years in the field, and designed by wildland forest firefighter also in a company. The model is irrelevant. My point is that the effectiveness of the sprinklers are proven in interface fires over many community fires we've had in Alberta for the last, I don't know, we're going back to Slave Lake and so on and so forth. And the statistics are out, anecdotal comments are out. They're a very important tool to help slow and or stop interface fires in communities such as Hinton, surrounded by forest. In Hinton, I've observed 4 of these different models on homes. Now, I'm not going to every home, but 4 in a town of this size, not going to do a whole lot, including my own house. I do believe that it's an important tool, and my opinion is it'd be a worthy investment, whether it's municipal, provincial, federal, I don't know where the money would come from, to make these available to all community members, either as a subsidy or as a free item, in order to basically take a chunk out of what might be happening here in the future. Hopefully not. And I don't like framing this with what's going on right now to the west of us. It's very unfortunate, but that's what brings me here a little bit. In my opinion, this investment would be a lot less than having a whole lot of people like we just had behind us walk in and so on and so forth, spending a lot of time in the community, saving the community. So that's my presentation, that these would be a great investment for our community, for our homes, to either buy them subsidized or whatever, so we can all have them taken around. That's it. If anybody has questions on the product or anything else, you're welcome to reach me. If not, thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you very much, Mr. Corbeil. Very timely, those sprinklers. So that will conclude Citizens Minute with Council for this evening. That will take us to section 5 of our agenda, action items, and item 5.1, Bursary Policy number FN 1400. We'll go to acting CAO Boudreau.
Thank you, Mayor. Remaining council, before you today is the bursary policy that has been before committee a couple of times. Just as a recap, this is predominantly money, $50,000 worth of money that was part of the community agreement between the town of Hinton and Trans Mountain Pipeline. We have used a bit of town of Hinton investment funds to round it up to a number that would make it nice, even bursary amounts. The fund is meant to reduce barriers for education in trades, technology, and environmental sciences in disciplines that support the pipeline industry. We're looking tonight for approval so that we can begin advertising and have this out for the first round of applications in the community. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a question based on an email we received earlier. I'm not sure, Ms. Borbo, did you have a look at the communication that came in around noon today? We had a citizen who's inquiring, really, it was an interest question on investment, and they had said they had seen that there was only $400 in investment income. They had thought that the interest that would have been received since 2021 was in the neighborhood of 3,000 to 5,000. Do you have any answer for us so that we could get back to that citizen?
Yeah, thank
Ms.
you for
Borbo?
thank you for the question, Councillor Magoon. The money as presented to the town of Hinton was in our general operating funds. It wasn't necessarily in an interest-bearing account. So the town did not make any efforts to invest it, if you will. So the $400 that came forward to the first committee meeting was simply a suggested top up to round these bursaries to be a round number. So we weren't issuing a bursary of $1,737.12. So that is very much just, and it was identified that the funds or the top up was coming from investment income, just as assurance that it wasn't remaining taxpayer dollars.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Borbo. Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillor Taylor.
What kind of training is this for? I look at the second page and it says program alignment with the pipeline industry. So is this for pipeline secondary education training, or is it for all types of secondary education training?
Thank you for the question through the chair to all of council. One of the stipulations laid out by the funding partner Trans Mountain was that the educational alignment needed to be in support of the pipeline industry. So they are the ones that identified trades, technology, or environmental sciences. We've put the parameter in to have the applicant prove to us how that alignment is there. So we're following the intention of the funder on this.
Right, so it could be welding or a large variety of things related to pipeline.
Through the chair, that is correct. We're wanting to make it open so that we're just asking them to prove the alignment.
Perfect, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that council approves bursary policy FN 1400 as presented. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Council, the motion on the floor is that council approves bursary policy FN 1400 as presented. Any discussion? Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question to Ms. Borbo. I know that the application's age range is suggested 18 to 35. Any thoughts on older, wider bracket? Because we're seeing a lot of people maybe over the ages of 35 looking at changing careers, you know, and that could be a career, you know, that they would be interested, or is it typical for these types of bursaries to target that age bracket? Because I'm appreciative it's older than 18 but I'm just curious if there's been any discussion of an older age.
Through the chair to Councillor Hawes and the rest of council, the 35 years of age could definitely be changed at the will of council. The conversations that had been had with Trans Mountain as we needed to vet this through them to ensure that we were following their community standards and what they were looking for. 35 was the age chosen because it did widen it, and it did include more than just individuals of the age that possibly have more family support when they're under 25 than they maybe would have over 25. But we could certainly look at adjusting the policy in the future if it's the will of council and increasing that age.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I'm in favor of this bursary. I think that's a great opportunity for our residents, you know, and to apply for. So, but yeah, maybe we'll see how things go over the first year, and you know, we can always relook at it another time. So appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor Hawes. Council, any further discussion? The motion on the floor is that council approves Bursary Policy FN 1400 as presented. Councilors, please vote now. And that motion is carried unanimously. Councilor, is there anything further for item 5.1 on the agenda this evening? Seeing nothing, we'll move to item 5.2, 2024 public auction date for tax recovery. Acting CAO Borbo.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is before you is very much a legislated item. We are very restricted when it comes to tax recovery and ensuring that we follow legislation. There is currently one property for sure that we would be looking to bringing forward for tax recovery. Now, of course, that could change if we can come to agreement with the landowner or the property owner prior to. So at this point, administration is seeking that council set Thursday, October 24th, 2024 at 2 p.m. in the Government Center as our tax auction recovery date. Once that is set, then we're able to meet all of our provincially legislated advertising requirements. Thank you.
Thank you. Acting CAO, Councilor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to take the recommended action and move that council set the date for a public auction for tax recovery purposes on Thursday, October 24th, 2024, starting at 2 p.m. in the Government Center Council Chambers at 131 Civic Center Road, Hinton, Alberta. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Magoon. Council, the motion on the floor is that council set the date for a public auction for tax recovery purposes on Thursday, October 24th, 2024, starting at 2 p.m. in the Government Center Council Chambers at 131 Civic Center Road, Hinton, Alberta. Councilor Taylor.
This is somewhat better news than last year, isn't it? Because last year we had a longer list. Now we've caught up. Am I correct?
Acting CAO Burbo.
Through the mayor to all of council, we are still working with some properties to enter into a tax repayment agreement, an acceptable tax repayment agreement. Prior to anything going to auction, it does come before council, so reserve bids can be set. I only mentioned the one property now as it's quite likely that it will go forward to tax recovery. There are some others that we're currently working on, but we're definitely hopeful, not a big list.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilor Taylor. Thank you, Acting CAO. Any further discussion from council? The motion on the floor is that council set the date for a public auction for tax recovery purposes on Thursday, October 24th, 2024, starting at 2 p.m. in the Government Center Council Chambers at 131 Civic Center Road, Hinton, Alberta. We will call the question. Councilors, please vote now. And that motion is carried unanimously. Council, is there anything further for item 5.2 on the agenda this evening? Seeing nothing, we'll move to item 5.3, CAO Oversight Committee. This is going to Miss Hope, Human Resources.
Good afternoon, everyone. So the CAO Performance Review Policy CL 1111 was approved by Council on July 2nd, and it allows for the use of a third-party consultant to conduct the annual CAO performance reviews. And we're looking to see if we can put a consultant on a 3-year retainer. This could provide consistency, availability, and some cost savings, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Hope. Councillor Taylor.
My question is, the consultant duties as explained in the policy seem to suggest that the consultant tabulates and summarizes comments. That's what I get out of the policy. To pay a professional that kind of money just to tabulate and summarize results wouldn't be worth the cost that we're going to pay here. If that professional, being an HR professional, helped us with seeing if our goals were met or how other CAOs around the province, the average sort of level of performance for, how they did versus what we did, and provided that level of professionalism to us. You know what I'm trying to say? Then that would be worth the cost. But simply as a tabulator of information, it's not worth the price. So will they be doing more than just adding up numbers?
Ms. Hope?
Because it doesn't say they are.
Through the chair to councillors, Taylor, thank you very much for the question. So can you guys hear me? I feel like I'm really far away. Sorry. Okay. The consultant could do a lot more. There are benchmarking services out there, which is one of the things that you alluded to. But having a consultant doing this process is more than just collecting forms and combining the results. They bring an external perspective free from internal politics and biases. So they'd be looking at the results and determining if any were outside the norm, what should be accepted, what should not be accepted, so that they can ensure a fair and impartial evaluation of the CAO's performance. So they have extensive experience and specialized knowledge in performance evaluations, allowing them to identify key performance metrics and to provide insightful analysis. So they would also be analyzing everyone's comments and trying to find trends and whatnot there. The report does mention confidentiality. So an external consultant can maintain confidentiality because these are 360 reviews. They're looking for reviews from input from council and from staff, and having a third-party consultant really shows that it will be confidential, and perhaps we can get more viable results through a consultant because people will be more comfortable in sharing their opinions. They can also provide strategic recommendations because they can look at their findings and they can help align the CAO's performance with the organizational strategic goals, so they can identify if there's any gaps. Sorry, I have a whole list. They can add credibility to the process, especially when communicating results to stakeholders. So if it's really, really positive, or if it's really, really negative, instead of just like attaboy, they add that little layer to it. And consultants can help pinpoint areas for improvements and professional development, which is another part of the goal setting. So even within the policy, even though it's written pretty HRE, there's still lots of room for the consultant to operate there and add extra value to the process.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Thank you, Ms. Hope. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is,
Oh, you're good.
we're good? Okay. My question is, with a 3-year retainer, if council gets, say, a year into the process and they discover that, I guess we're at a bit of loggerheads with the consultant where we feel like we're not getting the right level of depth, then, maybe we decide that it's best to look for a different consultant or take it back in-house again. With the retainer, is there anything from preventing us, at the end of year 1 from moving in a different direction, or are we locked into 3 years at that point?
Ms. Hope?
Thank you. We could have an out clause in the agreement.
Thank you, Ms. Hope. Any follow-up? Council, I remind you that there's still no motion on the floor. Are there any further questions for administration? Oh, thank you. Councillor Hawes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have one quick question, and this is more not to administration, but more to the CAO Performance Committee and any member from there, and maybe look at the mayor, because this was the first year that we hired a consultant to be part of the CAO performance review. We've never done that in the past as a council. So I'm just curious to the members of the committee, your thoughts on the use of a consultant. And I know, Mr. Mayor, you weren't here during the last, but other members have been part of the CAO. Has it been beneficial having that third party present in that process? And would it be beneficial moving forward, do you think, from a committee's perspective?
Thank you. And would any of the other members of the committee like to speak before myself? So seeing nothing, I think from the committee perspective and certainly from my perspective, where I would be the alternative option for interviewing managers and staff, bringing in the third-party consultant makes an absolute ton of sense. It provides, again, that distance between administration and council. It maintains that distance between administration and council. I could see it's very awkward conversations for an employee to talk to a mayor about their boss. Whereas talking to a third-party consultant that does this for a living, I think makes it a lot easier to get real information and real feedback. Additionally, it gives council and the CAO Performance Review Committee a professional opinion as to how our performance of the CAO is, in contrast with other communities and other CAOs that they've reviewed and worked with over time. So it really does give council a good sounding board to determine what next steps should be if we have performance management issues, whether our CAO is on point, or in this case with the last year, that was the first time we'd gone through our CAO performance review process as it's published, just due to the turnover and the timing of everything. And we were able to get from the consultant a number of recommendations to improve our process and policy to maintain that professionalism. Considering our CAO is our highest paid employee, I think it's important that we do things as professionally as possible when it comes to those reviews. And I see Councillor Taylor would like to add some input as well. So Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I think one of the ways it would help too is even when you have a good CAO like we do, the area of professional growth for the CAO into the future is something where council's going to have maybe not as much help as a professional would. He'd be able to help us with, some suggestions on how to bring somebody from good to even better into the future. I think that's one of the values that a consultant would add. We might just say, has he met the goal or whatever? We're not recognizing that we'd like to help him grow into the future as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Hawes, any follow-up?
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that insight, and it's along the line of how I feel about having a professional. So I'd like to move that council directs administration to proceed with obtaining a 3-year retainer agreement for CAO performance reviews. And I won't speak to it. I think it's just the right thing to do for our community, for our CEO, and it's just much more professionally handled. So yeah, I hope that everybody agrees and supports this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Council, the motion on the floor is that council direct administration to proceed with obtaining a 3-year retainer agreement for CAO performance reviews. Is there any further discussion? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question that council direct administration to proceed with obtaining a 3-year retainer agreement for CAO performance reviews. Councillors, please vote now. And that motion is carried unanimously. I'll take us to, is there anything further from council for item 5.3 on the agenda this evening? Seeing nothing, we'll move to item 5.4, new youth student rate for Hinton Transit. And this will go to Ms. Karen Bouchard, the FCSS manager.
It's on. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Administration presented at the Committee of the Whole on July 9th, 2024, with recommendations pertaining to the Hinton Public Transit Service that could achieve the aim of increasing revenue through new sources. One recommendation was to increase ridership and consequently fare revenue through the introduction of youth or student rate and a noted gap in the current fare structure. Administration contacted comparative municipalities of Whitecourt, Jasper, and Blackfalds, all of which include child, youth, and student rates, and it was found that this additional fare structure brings in increased revenue. This report is before council to seek approval for an enhanced fare rate structure for the Hinton Public Transit to include new youth and student rates. Introducing youth and student rates would add additional fare options and potentially increase ridership and corresponding revenues. The enhanced fare structure and added rates being youth eligibility would be ages 7 to 17 inclusive. And then student eligibility would be current public school or post-secondary enrollment with student ID. So that being said, the youth cash fare would be $2. The 3-month youth student pass would be $50 unlimited rides. And then the 12 punch card youth student would be $25. The level of transit services would be improved with the recommended action with no risk liability implications. The ridership would be expected to rise in the youth and student demographics, which would consequently increase the revenue while costs stay the same. In addition, with the recommended action, administration would actively promote new fare and pass options immediately to ensure current and potential users are made aware to the community. And with that, administration recommends that council approves the Hinton transit fare structure rates as presented until December 31st, 2025. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Bouchard. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I love the idea and I'm hoping somebody will put forward a motion if not myself. But I did have a question about if this is successful, is there a communications plan in place afterwards for like reaching out to schools, the community, social media, that sort of thing to let folks know about the change in structure?
Yep, so we've started that already, just kind of a background of just a plan, a communications plan that we've initiated, just because it's, you know, school's three weeks away. So we're hoping to get this started should the recommended action be approved, and we can get it rolling out through all channels of communications. We work closely with the schools, pushed out in that, the overall public as well. Yeah.
That's really cool. Thank you.
Councillor Hawes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess my question is, because prior to this, there was no fee for these age groups. Is that my understanding?
Ms. Bouchard.
So yes, thank you, through the mayor council. So the youth was paying the $3 cash fare. So they were essentially, they didn't have an option. So they just paid what our current existing fare structure was. So this would be a bit of a deal for the youth in this age group. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Because my worry is that we were charging them not before now. The purpose of this and the fare is to hopefully increase the ridership in that age category. So excellent. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that council approves the Hinton Transit fare rates as presented until December 31st, 2025. I think everything that needs to be said has been said on this, so thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Council, the motion on the floor is that council approves the Hinton Transit fare rates as presented until December 31st, 2025. Any further discussion? Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question, just some clarification. It seems to be that there's quite a large differential between the adult monthly pass and the 3-month pass for seniors, or the proposed youth 3-month pass. I just want to make sure I'm reading it right. It's $70 for 1 month for an adult, but it will be $50 for 3 months for a senior or youth.
Ms. Bouchard.
Yes, through the mayor chair. Yes, that is correct.
I could follow up.
Go right ahead.
I'm not sure if you have the information. Is there a reason? So like a 3-month equivalency for an adult would be $210, but for a senior or youth, it's only going to be $50. That seems like a huge discrepancy. Much larger than any of the other comparator communities.
Through to the mayor and council. So yes, there is definitely a gap. I mean, we could revisit the fare structure in looking at the adult monthly pass. The reason why we didn't lower any of the passes just with our revenue. Monthly passes is actually quite popular. And we actually don't have many issues with the price of our monthly pass. That being said, introducing this new fare structure, there may be questions being raised, what you just raised. In addition to that, I do want to share that it has been confirmed that we have been approved through our low income transit pass program. And so that'll be starting here shortly. So again, that will increase the revenue, but that might offset a little bit of revenue too with people purchasing monthly passes. So we didn't really think it would be a good idea to decrease any fare costs at this point.
Any further follow-up, Councilor
So
Staff?
I'd like to speak to the motion if I can.
Go right ahead.
So speaking to that, I'm not going to support passing this today. I feel it's too big a discrepancy. I mean, if you compare it to White Court, which is comparable for the monthly pass for the adult at $70, their senior youth is at 40 per month. Ours is proposed to be at 50 for 3 months. And I just think that I need to look at that a little bit better and try and make some type of informed analysis about whether that's going to increase ridership to the point that it's worthwhile, or if that's too much of a subsidization. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Ostashik. Councilor Magoon and then Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I think you'd mentioned this, but just to maybe speak to Councillor Ostashik's concerns. If the motion on the floor is successful tonight, I can only assume that there's going to be some data tracking over the next several months to sort of see what the impact on ridership is.
Through to council. Yep. Yes, that is correct. Yeah, we track all the ages, yeah, all of that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Magoon. Councilor Taylor.
I think I agree with Councilor Ostashik. Like the discount so far for the daily thing is a third for seniors and youth. And the other communities, their monthly discount from adult to senior and youth is like a third or a little less. But our discount is like way, way, way less than that. So it's not in keeping with the comparators. So I wouldn't support anything more than a third or 40% discount for a student or adult on a monthly basis until I could understand it better as to why we've offered such a big discount in comparison to the comparator communities. Seems out of whack. I think a discount is appropriate. Not one that big.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Taylor. Councilor Magoon.
For myself, I'll be speaking in favor of the motion that's on the floor. I'm quite, just personally, I'm quite fond of the idea of starting with that 3-month pass at a much reduced cost, because I think what'll be interesting to see is with that amount of value offered to our citizens, especially our seniors and our youth, I'd like to see how many people would take advantage of our transit system and see if that does have quite a substantial effect on ridership. And if it does, then I think we could always look at our structure for fees a little bit later on as well. That's something we're always able to do. But I think with a value like that, it would be interesting to see what impact that has on ridership, especially given the fact that we're so spread out. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Magoon. Councilor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Has the senior 3-month pass always been 50?
Ms. Bouchard.
Through to council. Yes,
Yep.
that is.
And you said the monthly pass adult at 70 had not been a big concern to people in town?
Through to council. No, there's never been any issues. Again, many of our seniors do use our Freedom Express, and that's increasing just with the on-demand option with our Freedom Express. There is a noted gap of the demographic of youth not using our transit system. So that was more of our focus of making it, affordable too, right?
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bouchard. Thank you, Councilor Race. Councilor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as I said, I'm not going to be supporting this motion. I would be supportive of having it come back to committee of the whole to discuss. I think a discount's appropriate, but that level of discount I'm not sure is appropriate. I did just quickly, 90-day pass, if they used it twice a day, it's 180 rides. It comes out to like 28 cents per ride. And I believe rides are pretty heavily subsidized already by the the taxpayers. I can't remember what the cost is per ride, but I know it's pretty significant. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure that level of subsidization to get more riders using it. They must currently have a solution or they'd be using it already. So I'm not sure that that's a level of subsidization that I'm comfortable with. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ostashik. Council, the motion on the floor is the council approves the Hinton Transit fare rates as presented until December 31st, 2025. Is there any further discussion from council? Councillor Haas.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just I guess a question to Ms. Bouchard. The recommendation is till December 31st of 2025. Would it be too short of time, starting today, if we were to look at this in December of 2024 to see, what the numbers are looking like, the usage of it? Would that be a more reasonable amount of time? Because I can see where Councillor Stashik's coming from and Councillor Taylor, and I don't disagree with that. I'm just wondering if we could gather any data in a shorter period of time, and then relook at those fees possibly sooner rather than a year and a half from now.
Ms. Bouchard?
Through to council, yes, that's another great option. We have to bring back our service level policy along with some on-demand options. So what we could do is we could bring all of that closer to the end of the year together, all encompassing, or separately, whichever. But that certainly gives us enough time to do some tracking for sure.
Councillor
Okay.
Haas, follow up?
Yeah, I'd like to see this move forward and get some data on, the current prices and then have a more fulsome conversation after that. And I just feel like maybe that amount of time. So I'd like to do a friendly amendment to do December 31st of 2024, or do an amendment to this, and change the date so that we can have that conversation. And I don't know if that will, answer maybe some of the questions that Councillor Stashik has and Councillor Taylor, or maybe it may not. Maybe we want it in the committee of the whole, but I think a shorter period of time. So I'd like to move forward with that motion and make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. And I can just confirm that you are moving to amend the motion on the floor to a date of December 31st, 2024. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. We'll get administration on that right now. So council, the motion on the floor right now is an amendment to the original motion. It will change the date of the original motion to December 31st, 2024, or 2024. So the final, should this amendment pass, the final motion would read that council approves the Hinton Transit fare rates as presented until December 31st, 2024. We will take discussion on the amendment only at this time. Council, any discussion on the amendment? Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So then that means the first quarter of 2025, you would come and present to us.
Ms. Bouchard?
Through to council, yes, we could take the data and right at the start of the new year, we could have the data and bring it forward.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Taylor?
I think I favor getting the data and then setting the rate based on maybe more comparables or something like that, rather than setting a rate that then very quickly we have to change. Because I think we have a balance. We have a balance between being fair to the seniors and the youth and trying to get them a rate that'll encourage them. And we got a balance between the taxpayers that are paying for this heavily subsidized service to try to not make it too onerous. Thanks. I don't favor the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess the reason why I'm comfortable supporting the amendment to get that data before, or pardon me, to go ahead and adjust the fee beforehand, is that if you look at the proposed, or pardon me, the rates across the four communities, Jasper, Blackfalds, Whitecourt, and Hinton, our monthly passes, we're tied for the most expensive spot. So I think the likelihood of us increasing adult prices are low. If anything, we could look at the overall price of what we are charging our adults in the community. I think that might actually be more reasonable. I don't want to run into it with an assumption. I don't think there's any harm making this adjustment over the next several months. and seeing what the net impacts are. All it's going to do at the very least is increase ridership. So yeah, that's why I'm supporting the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillor Race.
Thank you, sir. I look at this as a pilot project. So from now until the first quarter of January, we'll do this, and then the information that we garner will dictate how we move forward. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm definitely more comfortable on a 4-month timeline than a 16-month timeline. That said, though, it's very difficult when a rate gets set and people become accustomed to a rate that when the data is produced to council and we can see what subsidization rates, it's very difficult at that point to raise the rate without a bunch of feedback from the community that in opposition to that, they get used to that. They're comfortable with that. They think it's beneficial to them, obviously. So at that point, finding out it's not feasible and it's not sustainable and having to raise it, I feel it's much easier to get the information, have a fulsome discussion, come up with something appropriate, and then implement it. Like I said, I feel a 4-month window is better than a 16-month window, but I'm still not going to support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ostashik. Council, is there anything further on the amendment? Well, I'm going to speak in favor of the amendment briefly. I think it's a good way to shorten up the timeline and get the feedback. The fact that we've already been at this price point for our seniors for our existing structure makes me a little bit more comfortable with it. But I think with the amended dates, it's very interesting that we're going to see immediate feedback from school-age children and teenagers who perhaps buy a 3-month pass and they will either ride the bus or they won't. And in December, when it comes time to get the December to February one, they'll either pick up on the program or they won't. And I think that's going to be pretty definitive in terms of use statistics. So I'm interested in supporting this amendment at this time. So council, the motion on the floor is an amendment to the original motion, changing the date to December 31st, 2024, so that the original motion would read that council approves the Hinton Transit fare rates as presented until December 31st, 2024. There's no discussion, no further discussion on the amendment. Councillors, please vote on the amendment now. Oh, Councillor Chambers is here. Now, okay, that motion is carried 5-2 with Councillors Ostashik and Taylor voting against. Councillor Chambers, did you have anything to speak to the item 5.4 on the agenda, the student rate for Hinton Transit?
No, I was able to hear the majority of it and I support the amendment as presented.
Okay, thank you. So council, that brings us back to the original motion now amended. It reads that council approves the Hinton Transit fare rate as presented until December 31st, 2024. Council, any further discussion on the amended motion? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question. Councillors, please vote now. And that motion is carried 5-1. 5-2, thank you, with Councillors Taylor and Ostashik voting against. And council, is there anything further for item 5.4 on the agenda this evening? Seeing nothing, we'll move to item 5.5, amendment to recreation user fee policy number CS 7200. We will go to Miss Heather Way, perhaps.
Thank you, Mayor, through to council. As council is aware, recreation center access and user fees have historically been set by a policy CS 7200 and its associated schedules in 3-year increments. The report before you today focuses on the schedules of the policy CS 7200 only, which indicate the fees for recreation use, which are set to expire on September 1st of this year. Given that policies are not the appropriate legislative mechanism to enact or enforce fees, administration is preparing a master fees, rates, and charges bylaw to consolidate all town fees. To that end, recreation must move away from renewing its fees in September, but rather in alignment with all other fees for consideration during the budget process annually. Administration is therefore requesting that council amend policy CS 7200 by extending the expiry dates of recreation fees through to December 31st, 2024 to allow for council consideration of new recreation fees and to complete the first iteration of the master fees, rates, and charges bylaw that's forthcoming. Taking the recommended action today will have no impact on the projected revenues within the operating budget, as fees for September of this year through to December 31st had not yet been set by council, and thus budgets were calculated based on the current fee schedule. I can take any questions at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Way. Council? Councillor Taylor.
So the point of this is to bring this in sync with the overall fee rate structure for everything else.
Ms. Way?
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Through to the remainder of council, that is correct. However, the rec department is prepared to bring our fees as soon as possible. We also have the draft bylaw ready for viewing by council and feedback. So as soon as you're ready to see it, we're ready to bring it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Way. Councillor Taylor, follow up? No. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Council, any further questions for administration? Any motions, perhaps? Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that council amend Schedule A and Schedule B of the Recreation and Parks User Fee Policy CS 7200 to extend the fee expiry date to December 31st, 2024. Oh, and we'll see if anyone wants to split, that council direct administration to return options for 2025 Recreation and Parks user fees to a future committee meeting for consideration and inclusion in the future master fees, rates, and charges bylaw prior to 2025 budget deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Council, the motion on the floor is that council amend Schedule A and Schedule B of the Recreation and Parks User Fee Policy CS 7200 to extend the fee expiry date to December 31st, 2024, and that council direct administration to return options for 2025 Recreation and Parks user fees to a future committee meeting for consideration and inclusion in the future master fees, rates, and charges bylaw prior to 2025 budget deliberations. Council, is there any discussion? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question. Councillors, please vote now. And that motion is carried unanimously. Council, is there anything further for item 5.5 on the agenda this evening? Seeing nothing, we'll move to section 6 of the agenda, correspondence. And 6.1, the R.C.M.P. Q1 Municipal Report is the only item in our correspondence package this week. Would council like to accept for information? Councillor Race.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to move that we accept the R.C.M.P. First quarter municipal report for information.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Council, the motion on the floor is that council accepts the R.C.M.P. Q1 municipal report for information. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I accept it. I was having trouble understanding where we stand financially on this compared to where we're budgeted for the R.C.M.P. Are we under, over, on track? Couldn't quite get that from this.
Acting CAO Burbo.
Through to all of council. The invoices that have come in have been very much on track from the budget deliberations last year.
Okay.
Thank you, Acting CAO. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Council, anything further? The motion on the floor is that council accept the R.C.M.P. Q1 municipal report for information. Councillors, please vote now. Oh, Councillor Haas has another
I can say
question.
it after. I can say it after the vote. We'll vote. That's fine.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. So councillors, please continue to vote now. And that motion is carried unanimously. Councillor Haas.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to point out, the highlight, the decrease in thefts. I want to thank the R.C.M.P. for their hard work. I mean, I know the summertime is a very trying time, but I've seen, a decrease in thefts and then also an increase of visibility of the police have also increased, and also decrease in injury collisions as well. So, I just wanted to highlight those community priorities and seeing some progress. That's great to see. So just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. So that will take us to section 7 of our agenda today, notices of motion. Acting CEO Borbo, are there any notices of motion this evening?
Yes, your worship, there was one, and I will get recording secretary to put it up for reading.
Thank you. And can you read that in the minutes, please, Acting CAO?
My apologies. The notice of motion that came forward this afternoon is that council direct administration to return to council a report on the potential use of a municipal development corporation, MDC, or similar structure in partnership with provincial and federal agencies to meet the immediate, medium-term, and long-term housing needs within the town of Hinton.
Thank you, Ms. Borbo. And for those having questions, that was from myself. Are there any other notices of motion this evening, Ms. Borbo?
None that I'm aware of.
Thank you. That will take us to section 8 of our agenda this evening, reporting and council reports. We'll start with Councillor Taylor.
I attended a fundraiser for the evacuees and the first responders, and it was with Councillor Magoon, and it was very well attended. There are a surprising number of Jasper people and first responders that showed up, and it was they were very appreciative of the community effort and everything the community's done. That's the vibe I got out of the event. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been gone for a week and a half on vacation. I have to tell you, not a day went by that I did not think of Jasper and Hinton. And I am extremely proud of Hinton and how we pulled together to pitch in and help Jasper. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was on vacation, really just as the fires were breaking out, and then I was able to make it home over Nordegg in the middle of the night. First thing I want to say is thank you to all our first responders, our wildland firefighters, the Canadian Forces, administration, emergency response staff, provincial, federal politicians who've really been pulling together in the last week and a half, I should say, 2 weeks, to deal with the fires that have impacted our neighbors out in Jasper. As Councillor Taylor mentioned, we had attended that fundraiser where we were flipping burgers. And I also was surprised by the number of folks from Jasper who were in the community. The one message that we heard loud and clear from them was that they have been overwhelmed and felt really supported locally by the support of our community, local businesses, individual citizens coming together to just try and help people however they can. That was unanimous. That was just repeated over and over and over again. So it was really nice to hear. And really, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillor Stashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing to add to anything that anybody's not said already, and I have nothing further to report.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Councillor Chambers.
Well, as you can imagine, I've been tremendously busy over the last 2 weeks with the Jasper situation due to my other obligations with Evergreens. I think that the community of Hinton and all the surrounding areas have done a really good job of stepping up where needed. And I certainly see Hinton ramping up recently in a lot of areas. A small meeting with Community Futures just to talk about the Jasper loan situation, how to help businesses there. But otherwise, I don't have anything else to report at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. And Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I'm not going to mention, but kudos to our first responders and to everyone in Jasper. Thoughts to them. This week, meeting with the BBOC administration and myself and our new member to go through orientation with them to hit the ground running in September. Also working with the Hinton Library, the library board. We're putting together a survey to present at the registration fair. We're putting together our plan for service that needs to be done. And so that's coming up as well. So we'll be all at the information fair asking some questions and sharing some QR codes and things like that to get some ideas and feedback on the library services. Other than that, that's all I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. And for myself, the last 2 weeks since I last reported to you, Council, have seen myself do a number of media interviews with outlets right across the country. Last Friday, I had the honor and privilege to tour the town of Jasper with the Premier, the Mayor of Jasper, and some ministers. It's a very surreal feeling, and our hearts here in Hinton all go out to our neighbors to the west. Our community has stepped up and offered assistance in every possibly conceivable way. I'm very proud of our community in everything that everyone's stepped up to help out. And I know as we see more and more of our neighbors continue to return to our area, our community is ready and here to help and move towards recovery. The only other item I'd like to add is, Council, we have been invited to the opening of the Red Cross Reception Center on Thursday of this week at noon down by the curling rink. Everything is very fluid right now, so we should be mindful that those timings may change, but it is an invite that we have on the table right now. And that will take us to Chief Administrative Officer reporting, Acting CAO. Oh, go ahead. Councillor Stashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, just a question about the invitation to that reception. Will we get a formal invitation once that's finalized and the times are set, or is that our formal invitation?
There is an invitation in your email inbox currently.
Okay.
If it doesn't change, that's the timings. But at this point, I'd say be open to timing changes. That's been the name of the game the last 2 weeks around here.
Yep, for sure. So assuming there is timing change, it'll be forwarded to us then?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. The other thing, and thank you, Councillor Magoon, for reminding me, is I do want to mention that there was a firefighter lost in Jasper a couple of days ago. Our community came out and on that Sunday, we had a procession for the fallen. Hinton Fire was out in force. We had the flag hung from a ladder truck, and hundreds of wildland firefighters, Parks Canada personnel, military personnel lined the highway as we gave a hero's farewell to someone who came to our community in the service of others. And so I think our entire community, our hearts go out and we thank everyone who's here for their service and sacrifice. So with that, we'll go to Chief Administrative Officer reporting and Acting CAO Bourbeau.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I myself, as acting CEO, have nothing to report, but I have asked Chief DeBodrup to give an update on the fire situation. So if you're willing to hear that, he's ready.
Thank you. And Chief?
Thank you, Your Worship. I made some notes to be sure I didn't forget anything. It's very brief, but the Jasper wildfire progress and impact statement is Parks Canada officials in the Incident Command Post report today significant progress in battling the Jasper wildfire, thanks largely to the rain that we have received today and last night. Hopefully they got the same amount of rain up in the mountains as we did here in town, but I don't think they did. The fire, which has grown to approximately 340 square kilometers, and it prompted an evacuation of over 20,000 people in the national park and Jasper town site last week or 2 weeks ago. Though there is no timeline for residents to return, bus tours have begun for those whose homes were lost or damaged, allowing them to survey the impact to their homes and businesses. Critical services such as gas stations, grocery stores, and pharmacies are conducting their initial damage assessments in preparation for that eventual re-entry. They need to be up before the townsfolk return to the town. Alberta wildfire, note that the cooler temperatures and rain have reduced the wildfire growth, which is good to see. And it's aiding the firefighters in containing the fire. The fire is not contained yet. It's not considered under control or being held. It's still out of control. In addition to the ongoing operation in Jasper, Alberta wildfire crews will be supporting Parks Canada with wildfire coverage in the Banff and Kootenay National Parks, enabling a more concentrated focus in Jasper. Community and emergency response, our community and emergency response. There's been 3 bus tours conducted on August 5th for Jasper evacuees, including 2 from Hinton, and further tours are scheduled. I believe one was departing from Hinton today, and others from Valemont and Edmonton. Tours will continue based on demand, ensuring that safety protocols are strictly followed. And the Red Cross, as you heard tonight, is establishing operations in Hinton to support evacuees. The Hinton community has shown exceptional solidarity with various groups, church groups, service groups, just volunteers, stepping up to support our Jasper neighbors. And it makes me incredibly proud to call myself a Hintonite. We did suffer a tragic loss of a firefighter, and we acknowledged the tragic loss of this firefighter and extended our deepest condolences to his family. The support demonstrated by Hinton and Edson, after I made a few phone calls in the middle of the night, they lined the procession route in Edson as well, which was really nice to see. The support from Edson, town of Hinton, and the CAF is deeply appreciated by the family. And it highlights our community's unity and compassion during this challenging time. And it was a complete honor on my part to help coordinate that procession. The Canadian Armed Forces have had a small work groups working on a volunteer basis in Hinton here on their own time to help Fire Smart Hinton. And they have been focusing on the area right immediately in front of the government center. And to date, with these small work groups, they've cleared 46,000 square feet of underbrush. It's commendable effort. This brief just highlights the ongoing efforts and the community spirit and the future plans as Jasper navigates the aftermath of this wildfire. That's the end of my brief. That's all I could put together this afternoon. But if you have any questions that I can answer in a public forum, I will.
Thank you, Chief. And we have a question from Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, I'm just wondering, there was reported a second ignition point closer to Myatt Hot Springs. I suppose you could say like another ridge closer to us. Do we have any updates on how that particular source of fire is doing? Is it out? Is it under control?
Yes, through the chair. That fire was just south of Myatt Hot Springs. It actually occurred prior to the Jasper fires, a couple days prior. It's very high up on the tree line, and it has now joined in with the rest of the fire. But on that particular ridge, it is making no further progress, and it could be considered under control.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillor Taylor.
I'm sure I'm no different than any other councillor, but a lot of citizens are concerned about the town of Hinton and how well prepared we are for this. And I know I provided the town manager with an email saying that, you know, maybe when the fire situation, things have settled down a little, that if we could get a detailed briefing on the state of our wildland urban interface plans, how up to date they are and the things we need to do in the future, then we'd be much better prepared to talk to the citizens, because they're invariably, that's one of the things they always talk to you about in the last week and a half. And we need information to assure them that things are okay, and that would help. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Thank you, Chief. Yes, Councillor Hawes. Thank you.
Great, thank you. A question to our chief in regards to one of our mineral councils with the sprinkler system for homes. I know that was a conversation that we had when we had the volunteers come out and take a look at their homes and things. But maybe if you could speak to it, because I know that right now, it's the responsibility, I think, of the homeowner if they want to purchase those sprinklers for their home, and they are available in our community. But maybe you can speak to a little bit, because wasn't there some kind of sprinkler system too that people could ask for from the fire, or am I, maybe I'm off base there, I can't remember, but could you speak to those for a moment, maybe?
Chief?
Through the chair, yeah, it's a very good question. There are several different styles and types of sprinkler systems for residential use for wildfire application. Some of them are available. I will not promote one brand over another. There are several different brands available. But some of our local merchants, including Canadian Tire, Takara, Home Hardware, they do sell these. They are available. It is the responsibility of the property owner if they choose to put a sprinkler on their home or property. I advocate their use, especially in a forested area. They are very, very effective. And I have one myself on my home. I haven't installed it because it causes panic in the community when the fire chief gets ready to leave town and put the sprinkler system on. So we are not in a very high risk position right now, especially with all this rain we're getting. But this use of sprinkler systems is greatly encouraged and advocated, and is part of the Fire Smart program.
Councillor
Thank
Haas,
you.
follow up?
Yeah, if I could, just real quick, and maybe you can't speak to this, but a question, because I'm sure insurance companies are probably also very favorable to sprinkler systems on the homes. Is there any that you're aware of opportunity, like to contact your insurance provider to see if there's any types of subsidies or anything of that nature when it comes to installing these?
Through the chair, that's another excellent question. In the province of British Columbia, there are actual discounts on your insurance if you have a sprinkler system installed on your property. They also, a lot of municipalities give a tax break for having them installed on your property. That is not a program that exists in Alberta. So if the property owner is looking for a discount, they would have to contact their local broker, insurance broker, and see what they can do.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the time.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually have a couple of questions regarding the rooftop sprinklers. If I recall correctly, the Hinton Fire has some mobile sprinklers that can be set up at risk locations in the event that we're threatened by wildfire. Are those the same type of system, or are they a more robust system that's attached to a higher volume pump, or is it hooked to a regular garden hose, same as the one that Mr. Corbet brought in earlier?
Through the chair, another good question and very timely. The system that was demonstrated here tonight would actually be most effective if it was attached to a high pressure pump, that type of nozzle that was on that. There are some that are of the style that just hook up to a garden hose, and even in a rural setting where you're on a well system, the pressure would be sufficient to provide adequate coverage. I've lost my train of thought. I apologize.
Sorry, I had asked if the fire department has some that they can deploy if there is a section of the community that's at risk.
Yes, thank you for that clarity. Yes, we do have, and we've got both styles. We've got high volume sprinklers, and we've got medium volume sprinklers, and we've got several of the residential sprinklers. They're the WASP sprinklers, they're called. Very low cost, but we have several of them. We have them in our structural protection units, our 2 trailers that we have. We have sufficient sprinklers to protect about 150 homes, which is scratching the surface for the numbers of homes in Hinton. But if in the event of a wildfire encroaching on the town, we are equipped to provide that sprinkler protection on homes that need it immediately. Currently, one SPU is deployed in Garden River up in northern Alberta. So we don't have access to those sprinklers. And our second SPU is in Jasper, with our sprinklers are spread out all over town protecting Jasper. So currently we have nothing in town, but we have immediate access to other SPUs from other municipalities.
Councillor Static, follow up?
I had another question, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I did have another question. In the event that a community is imminently threatened or even hit by wildfire, what happens with the municipal water supply? Now, I ask because my understanding in the Jasper situation that the municipal water supply wasn't available and that they were running overland high volume water lines to provide water for the SPUs. So in that type of situation, is municipal water available for, a garden hose attachment rooftop sprinkler, or would it be relying on pumps and portable water supplies?
Through the chair, both, to be quite frank, we would rely on the municipal system, and as long as it's operating. If we lose power, unfortunately, we lose water. So then we would be completely dependent on our standalone pumps and water reservoirs that we have. Hopefully that never happens. West Fraser does have a sprinkler protection system that they protect the stave line in the event of a wildfire. And also the fire pumps, which are also located at West Fraser, so that we shouldn't lose, as long as we don't lose power, we won't lose water in the town. Jasper is unique. They ran into a situation where they were running out of water. They actually drained the reservoir. They're on a well system there. They don't draw directly from the river. So they had to give time for the reservoir to catch up, and then they promptly drained it again. So they're constantly playing catch up, but they're doing a lot of drawing with high volume irrigation lines and irrigation pumps from the water sources into the town.
And Mr. McLaughlin, you had something to add to that resiliency discussion?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to add that part of our agreements with Mondi is to install some generators, and those generators will provide backup power to the water systems. We also are scheduling meetings with Mondi to come up with emergency contingency plans, just to come up with all the different ways we can keep water going in the case of emergency. We can't guarantee it, but if we put the thoughts to it before, we can come up with better plans.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin.
Your chair, I apologize. I did refer to West Fraser, but it is Mondi where our fire pump is.
It's a new change, Chief. That's okay. Anything further, Councillor Stashik?
Nope, that's good. Thank you for bearing with me through all those questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Fire Chief, when we took the fire smarting weekend, and then all of us had to take the fire smarting 101 course on the computer. And what I was told is, and we tried to do this, encourage as many citizens as we could to take that 101 course on the computer. The more people who took it, that put us in a really good position to get grant money for sprinklers. Can you follow up on that? And I think Councillor Hawes is familiar with that too.
Yes. Through the chair, that is correct. With the more citizens that complete the Fire Smart 101 program, it positions us that when we make grant applications, such as the FRIA grant, for any wildfire prevention activity, it greatly increases our chances of getting funding from FRIA. So
were we able to apply for funding with the number of people that did take the 101 training course?
We are currently making application for 2 FRIA grants. There's an intake right now, and there's 2 FRIA grants that we are applying for. One is for vegetation management, and the other one is to develop a long-term strategic plan for fire smarting the community, which also will enable us to obtain further FRIA grants, and also some fire prevention, wildfire prevention education in our community. production of maps, the evacuation maps, and we just need to catch up a lot of that and update our current wildfire status plan.
May I ask
Follow
one
up?
more question? And it's not fire related.
Well, hold on just a moment there, Councillor Race. I believe our remote CAO Panasic has something to add to the topic.
Thank you, Mayor, to the rest of council. So this was a few questions ago related to Councillor Stewart, but it is directly related. But we do have very robust wildfire mitigation and tactical plans. If any member of the public is interested, on our website under disaster services or fire safety, you can find a lot of information, public information related to emergency preparedness and evacuations, our wildfire preparedness guide, our wildfire mitigation strategy, our emergency social services plan, and our emergency management plan. A lot of those documents are more internal and tactical in nature, but there is some good information and publicly available information that would be good at education and information for the general public to take a look at. Thank you.
Thank you, CAO Panasic. And we'll go back to Councillor Race for the next question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Fire Chief, are e-bikes allowed on sidewalks? E-bikes with pedals? Or just e-bikes?
E-bikes with pedal assist e-bikes, as long as they're under the horsepower and the weight restriction, they're no different than a bike.
Okay.
So we would treat them exactly how we do with any regular pedal bike.
And a pedal bike is allowed on a sidewalk?
It is, and on our pathways.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Rafe. Thank you, Chief. Council, is there anything further for Chief de Beaudrep or administration? Seeing nothing, we'll move to section 9 of the agenda this evening and closed session. We'll look for a motion to move into closed from council. Councillor Race.
Move to go into closed session.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Council, the motion on the floor is the council move into closed session at 5:22 p.m. Any discussion? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question. Councillors, please vote now. Councillor Chambers voting in favor by hand. And that motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone, for coming out this evening. And we are looking for a motion coming out of closed. It is up on the screen. Any councillor would like to make that motion? Yes, Councillor Taylor.
I think it should say, as discussed with the amount of 2.6, with the deletion of 2.6.
Yes, with the removal of section 2.6. Thank you. And Councillor Taylor, is that looking correct to you now?
Yes.
Would you like to make that motion?
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Council, the motion on the floor is that council direct administration to proceed with option 1, purchase and sale agreement, as discussed with the removal of section 2.6. Is there any further discussion? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question. Councillors, please vote now. Councillor Chambers voting in favor by hand, and that motion is carried unanimously. And councillors who would like to make the final motion of the evening this evening? Counselor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that council agree to provide free swimming, bouldering wall, court use and general transit services until August 31st, 2024. I could speak to it quickly.
Please.
This is a little bit off the cuff, but it came to us through a suggestion from administration. And I think it's a great suggestion. It's a great way to recognize some of the challenges that our guests from Jasper are facing, but it also allows the citizens of Hinton who, you know, we certainly can't compare to what Jasper's been through, but having such a major disaster so close to our community puts it at top of mind for our citizens too. It's pretty much all you hear about when you talk to people in the town. So I think that's just a good way to show appreciation for our guests, for our citizens, and for visitors to our community. So I'm making the motion, and I look forward to council's support. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Ostashik. Council, the motion on the floor is the council agrees to provide free swimming, bouldering wall, court use, and general transit services until August 31st, 2024. Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question. Councilors, please vote now. And Counselor Chambers voting in favor by hand. That motion is carried unanimously. And I suppose the final motion must come now. Counselor Race.
I'd like to move to adjourn.
Thank you. Council, the motion on the floor is a motion to adjourn. Councilors, please vote now. Counselor Chambers voting in favor by hand. And that motion is carried unanimously. Council is adjourned at 7:31 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for coming out.
See you, everybody.